Hello, this is meteorologist Brad Warner from Region Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. And man, do we got a lot to talk about. We've got the system coming through South Dakota, southern Minnesota, Thursday afternoon into Thursday night and running into Friday morning. That's going to bring accumulating snow, freezing drizzle, freezing rain across these portions. So we're going to have to talk about that and show you some graphics for timing there. We've got a little system coming across North Dakota, northern Minnesota for Friday night into Saturday. That's going to be bringing a little light accumulations there again. And then there's the potential of a large system affecting our region by the beginning of next week. So make sure you stick around because you're going to want to find out a little bit more about that. All right, so we're going to start off by taking a look at the models first, and we're just going to do the main model here, and then we'll get into the graphics that'll hopefully tell the story a little bit more. But as we start off today on Thursday, we're getting the system that's pulling out of the Rockies here and is going to sort of slide east-northeastward throughout the afternoon on Thursday. And as it does so, it's going to be pulling in plenty of moisture. As it meanders eastward, more and more moisture gets worked up into this storm. And you'll see the increase in activity as we go through the day. But here we are moving right all around into noontime Central Time down on the southwestern part of South Dakota. You can see that snow and maybe even a little bit of rain mixed in initially. And then as that continues to move into about 6 p.m. Thursday evening, here we go. That storm really starts ramping up. We get snow that starts to increase further north into more central parts of South Dakota by this point. And the other thing to note is, even though you don't see precipitation, there is moisture working out ahead of this. So even out ahead of where you're seeing the precipitation fall, there's this low-level moisture that's starting to set up. And so what you might actually see out ahead of this is some freezing drizzle just about 50 miles out ahead of the main part of the falling precipitation. So within here, about 50 miles out ahead of it, you can expect maybe just some freezing drizzle to start before the actual snow and maybe even some freezing rain starts to move in. So this is around 6 p.m. And then as we get around 9 p.m., you can see, again, a little more snow starts to take over, a little bit colder air, but still wouldn't be surprised to see some freezing drizzle out ahead of this at this point. And even as as this storm continues to push eastward through the overnight hours, particularly kind of down in these regions, again, not surprised if you see just a little bit of freezing drizzle before the actual snow starts to kick in. And then once we get closer to about 6 a.m., really that snow starts to move across the rest of southeastern parts of Minnesota. Doesn't make it much further north than Interstate 94. Interstate 94 runs right about there, and you can see that's roughly about the dividing line, pretty close anyway, for where that snow's going to be. Maybe leaks just a little bit further north as we get later in the morning before that snow moves off later into the afternoon. So I'm going to show you a series of graphics that are going to show you the timing for snow, how much snow, the timing for that freezing rain and freezing drizzle, and roughly about how much of that to expect as well. And I'm going to have all these graphics up on all my social media sites, and I have that listed, the names and where to find them down in the description below, and then I'll also have them posted at the end of the video as well. But we'll start off here by taking a look at the rough arrival times for the snow. So the green here, we're looking at by noon Central Time. So I know Rapid City, you're in Mountain Time, but most everybody's kind of in Central Time. So I kind of talk in noon time or in Central Time. And then within this blue area here, just kind of creeping up to Pierre, roughly in between that noon to 3 p.m. And then beyond Pierre in through Chamberlain, we're talking 3 to 6. And then Sioux Falls, Huron, Brookings, roughly, Yankton, obviously, in between that 6 to 9 p.m. Thursday. And then beyond that, 9 Thursday night to midnight, early Friday morning in the green. And then the blue here, midnight to 3, and then 3 to 6 kind of begins to, or completes a sweep across Minnesota. And then 6 a.m. and after here in the pink. And now the snow accumulation is really the tricky part. The models, I don't know, for some reason are still just all over the place. And this is one of those systems that a shift either way is going to make a big difference as to what exactly is going to happen. And like I said, the models are really, man, they're just struggling. So right now, this is kind of what I'm thinking at this point. So with that said, maybe up to an inch possible in these areas in blue. Now, I did carry it a little bit further north than that I-94 corridor, and that's just because I think sometimes with these systems, you get just a little bit of flurry. So really north of I-94, I'm really not expecting a whole lot. It's probably just going to be a little bit of trace of precipitation up and through there. It's ultimately going to be south where you're going to get maybe closer to that inch mark or greater down as you get into southern parts of Minnesota. But anyway, anybody in these areas, you could pick up to an inch of snow. Now, these areas in green is where I'm thinking we're looking at 2 to 4 inches of snow. So really anywhere within here, we have that possibility of picking up that 2 to 4 inch range. Now, again, some of the models have been pulling this just a little bit further north and cutting this off here. And then a few other ones have actually had this area just a little bit further south. So right now, this is what I'm going with. This is what I think is going to happen. And then these areas in yellow probably have the best chance for picking up at least a fair amount of snow, where we're talking probably closer to 3-4 inches. Maybe that a couple of isolated areas of 5 inches as possible within this yellow area. Down kind of in far southern parts of Minnesota along that I-90 corridor. Then the freezing rain and drizzle arrival time. Now this, like I said, this does include drizzle as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get rain. It just means you're going to get some sort of freezing precipitation. That's not snow. It's going to be the garbage that's going to just hose up the roadways, really going to make travel hazardous as this sticks to the roadways. So this is roughly where I'm thinking, this area down here in pink by 3 p.m. Central Time down in the far southeastern parts of South Dakota. These areas in purple beyond Sioux Falls and northward, 3 to 6. As we get further north into Mankato and starting to approach Alexandria, in between that 6 to 9 p.m. time frame Thursday evening. And then 9 to midnight, so 9 Thursday evening to midnight early Friday morning, kind of from Alex, just approaching that I-94 area. And then anywhere from midnight to about 3 a.m. is where we're going to be looking at. This is probably mostly going to be freezing drizzle. I don't think the freezing rain is going to be making it quite that far east, but I think there's that possibility at least of seeing some freezing drizzle for you areas in the yellow. And so that's where I've got these areas shaded in pink. At least some light freezing rain, drizzle. Not a whole lot of accumulation, but probably just enough. It doesn't take much to make the roads slippery. So these are going to be the areas that we're really going to have to watch out for, particularly as we get later into the day, Thursday, and then as we wake up Friday morning, these roads could be very slippery. You put on top of that the snow that's going to be moving in over the top of it, and yeah, roads really aren't going to be great Friday morning. And then this area in purple down in the far southwestern parts of Minnesota, southeastern parts of South Dakota have the best chance for getting freezing rain. And then, of course, northern parts of Iowa, too, where you could see up to 1/10 of an inch of freezing rain possible. And that's really going to hose up roadways. And that could also just cause some isolated areas of maybe some power outages as well, if maybe a tree branch or something comes down. And so the National Weather Service has issued a winter weather advisories for you guys in purple, and it starts as early as noon on Thursday for those of you out more in the western parts of this advisory area, so kind of southeastern parts of South Dakota. And it lasts until roughly noon on Friday. And that's more so these areas down in southeastern parts of Minnesota, they'll go the longest or the latest. They go until about noon on Friday. Now, the good thing about all this, when we take a look and we're talking about freezing rain and freezing drizzle and all that stuff, is when we take a look at the possible wind gusts, here we are overnight, Thursday night into early Friday morning, we're just talking about gusts maybe to 20 miles per hour. So that's not bad. At least we're not talking 30, 40 mile per hour. We're definitely talking about tree limbs coming down and power outages and all that kind of unfortunate stuff. So the good thing at least here is we're not talking about a big wind event, maybe just some gusts to 20, maybe 25 miles per hour in some areas. All right, then we got a chance of snow starting Friday night. This is right around midnight, and we're starting to see some snow pick up across north central, northeastern parts of North Dakota. Late Friday night, midnight, early Saturday morning, and then that tracks eastward. This is about 6 a.m. Saturday morning. Starts to filter in a little more across northern parts of Minnesota. Now, as this does so, we're really not expecting much accumulation at all. We're looking at an inch or less for everything that's going to be moving across the northern parts of Minnesota. Here we are at noontime, and by this point, most of it has kind of ran out of North Dakota. We're just left with you guys up in the far north, International Falls, up to Two Harbors in Grand Marais. Ely as well. And then once we get kind of beyond that, that kind of continues to move eastward. And by 6 p.m. Saturday evening, most of the snow has left the state. We got just a little bit in the far northeast before that finally moves out. And then the big storm happens late Monday through Tuesday, maybe even into Wednesday. Now, yep, got to put that caveat out there. As I always do, it's out there a little ways. It's a ways out there. This storm hasn't come on shore. The models aren't certain with this yet. But as we take a look at this, the thing that, I've said before, when the different models agree with each other, then you start to become a little more confident because there's not that obvious uncertainty there. And so far, the models continue to show that there will be that possibility of a winter storm coming, probably starting late Monday and then rolling through the day on Tuesday. And you can see where this moisture really gets worked up and into the system real early. And we're talking about rain out in the eastern half of the storm. And then as that cold air kind of gets entrenched, as the moisture gets kind of entrenched into some of the colder air, it turns over to snow across western and parts of North Dakota as well. And then obviously we're talking about the tight isobars, and the isobars are these black lines, and the tighter they are, the stronger the wind is and all that kind of fun stuff. So we've got some strong southeasterly winds here and some strong northwesterly winds on the backside of it on Tuesday. And it's just kind of that recipe for a mess. You're probably looking at some freezing rain, some sleet mixed in with that as well. And then finally, really it takes the day on Wednesday. It just kind of sits there and lingers for a while before it eventually moves off more Wednesday night into Thursday. And so as it sits right now, and we're 5-6 days away from this potential storm. So it's a little ways out there again. But as we see it right now, this area in pink or whatever color you want to call this has got the best chance for seeing some significant snowfall. So this is the area as we sit right now today on a Wednesday night that we're looking at has the best potential for seeing that significant snowfall. And then we're talking about, just not just one day, but a couple of days of winds associated with it as well. And then, you throw in the possibility of some freezing rain and all that kind of fun stuff. So with all that in mind, if that track shifts south, if it moves a little bit further south, obviously all this moves south along with it and everything changes. So we'll keep you updated with it as we continue to see these models and the timing sort of shift. And as we continue on, again, make sure you follow along with social media sites and follow along here. And make sure you subscribe down below and hit the bell button as well. That will make you aware when I've uploaded a video. It'll let you know when I am on live. A lot of times if a storm like next week does occur, I will have a live stream going and I'll be active on the chat. Maybe it's one of those where I'm actually on screen and talking about it, so you can follow along and chat along and ask questions. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. At the very least, just hit the thumbs up button. That kind of gets the channel known as well. And we need to make sure that this type of information gets out there to everybody, because let's face it, not everybody has the coverage like people do down in like Minneapolis or Sioux Falls. There's all these big gaping holes up in through here. So make sure people know it, hit the thumbs up, share it so that people have these warnings or have this ability to know what's going out well ahead of time. So, and then as I said before, I'm going to release those graphics on the social media sites. I've got the description down below, but they're also right there to write down and jot down as well. So make sure you take a look at them so that you know what the timing is for this storm coming up Thursday, Friday, with the chances of snow and freezing rain and freezing drizzle and all that kind of fun stuff. So, and don't be afraid to ask questions either in the comments down below or in Facebook or Twitter or wherever you see me. So feel free. I'm happy, always happy to answer questions, especially if you have any travel plans. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I am meteorologist Brad Warner. Everybody stay safe as you're traveling across to South Dakota and southern Minnesota.